Alright, so here we are in 2.4, deductions and net pay. So there's like I'll talk mainly about Canada here, but if you work in Canada, then what you'll get is a paycheck, obviously, and from the pay that you get, you have to pay some taxes or some other deductions, they're called, that come off your paycheck. So you get this thing called a net income. Okay, so your employer, so let's say you have a job. The job pays you this thing called a gross income or gross pay. It's the money that comes in, gross income. What happens is you have to subtract deductions, and often they're percentages. Okay, so like people that make more money than others, like rich people, they have to pay more taxes, and it's based on percentage. Okay, and that's for Canada. Some things also come off your paycheck and aren't included on your taxes, like how much money you pay to your pension. Okay, and then that's what's called a taxable income. So the money that you get paid, um, and minus a few things, is called your taxable income. Okay, so like say as a teacher, say I get, just for example, $5,000 in a month. If I pay off $100 to my union dues, then the government can only tax 4,900, not the actual 5,000. So the percentage is adjusted a little bit. In this class, all we're really going to worry about is just figuring out the percentages of taxes and subtracting it from the gross pay. Okay, so back to where we started at the top of the page. Your job pays you a gross income, and then you're going to subtract deductions, and then that is going to equal this thing called net pay, and that's what actually goes in your bank, a bank account. That's the money that actually goes in your account, not the gross. Okay, because you have to pay taxes, and that's just the reality of living in Canada. Alright, so you can read example 1 if you like. Now, this is just a percentage of question. So 15% of $750, that's what's going to be deducted here. 15% of 750. Just recalling what we already know, change to decimal and times. So 0.15 times 750, 112.50. So you would take your 750, subtract the federal tax, and in your bank account you would get 637.50. Okay, and that's just the price of doing business in Canada. If you want to work in Canada, the government's going to take off a little bit, and depending on how much money you make, the percentage will change. Like 15% is quite low. You can get taxed as high as like 40 to 50% in Canada, depending on how much money you make. If your short-term disability insurance, what do you pay off your paycheck? So short-term disability, this is just a small percentage. You can see it's 0.5%. And this is just in case like somebody gets injured at your workplace, like say I broke my leg and I can't work, then this thing called short-term disability will help me get back on my feet. And you can see that everybody would just pay like 0.5%, so that if everybody's paying that, there's enough to pay off the person. Okay, so 0.5%, make it the decimal, 0.005. So we know how to do that, just divide by 100. And then of course times by the dollar amount, so 0.005 times 300. Like you're paying $1.50 every month, or every paycheck for short-term disability. Canada Pension Plan, this is also a pretty small percentage, 5% basically. And the CPP, this comes off everybody's paycheck in Canada. So this goes into old age pension. So if you're 65 or older, you can apply for CPP, and you'll always have to pay it up to a maximum amount every year. So 4.95%, divide by 100, 0.0495, and then multiply by the dollar amount. And that's what you would pay every month. So 78 bucks and 11 cents goes to CPP. All right, now they're going to talk about taxable income. What percentage? So whenever you see a question that says what percentage, you always have to figure out something that goes for this formula. Part divided by whole times 100. The part is always smaller, so 757. That's what she paid in taxes. The gross income was 3276. So find out that ratio and then times by 100 and you'll get your answer. So I got about 23% there. Okay, before tax deductions was 7547 on 700. So before you apply the tax, that's what that means. So 700 is her gross income. Take off 7547. So for this type of question, like she might have paid 75 to say like a union, and the government's not going to tax you on that if you're giving it to a union. So 700 take away 75. So now the government would only tax you on 624. Okay, so the tax rate will be smaller if it's on 624 than if it's on 700. So part divided by whole times 100. Got 15% there. And here's the province tax. So the exact same question, just different number. And this one's 5.9%. Okay, next one's employment insurance, EI. Okay, EI is very important. This is similar to the CPP. You always pay EI and you always pay CPP up to a maximum amount every year. Okay, so Hans paid 37 in EI on a monthly income of this. So what's the rate? The rate is the percentage. So take that part divided by that whole times 100%. This is like 1.7%. So very similar to the CPP, which was just a little bit higher. Alright, so example 3 looks quite large. They're talking about basically somebody's paycheck. Okay, so here we go. Alright, so let's highlight these deductions. So, like you get a paycheck from your job, okay, $325 per week. Everyone's happy. I'm getting paid. Yippee. Okay, but here comes the problem. Deductions. Oh my gosh. I gotta pay that to the federal tax, so that's to Ottawa. Here's the provincial tax, so that would be in here in Alberta. And then the CPP and the EI is Canada-wide. Everybody in Canada pays those. Okay, and there's another job here. So $567 a week. And oh my gosh, here's all these other deductions. Federal, provincial, and CPP. So what is his net income? And the net income, remember, is everything after the deductions. So 325, you got to take off 5667. You got to take off 1312. You got to take off 1609, and you got to take off 414. The other job, 567, you got to take off 7942, 1682, and 1812. And then you just get those answers and you add them up, and that's his net income. Let's get those answers and add them up. So 234 for the first job. And 452.64 for the second job. Add those up. 687.62. Alright, the next question is identical to it, except now they're going to give it to you as percentages. So, this bi-weekly gross income. Bi-weekly means every 2 weeks. Very common for people to get paid every 2 weeks. The other one is monthly, so those are the two common ones. Here you have some before tax deductions. So you have to do this before you apply the tax. So a short-term disability, and a union due, and a pension plan. Okay, so we got to do 0.5% of 3654. We got to do 3.1% of the same number, and we got to do 4% of the same number. So I'm just going to do these quickly because you already know how to convert percents to decimals. So 0.005 times 3654.75. After rounding, 1827. Next one, 0.031 times the same number, 3654.75. 113.30 after rounding. And then 4%, 0.04 times the same number, 3654.75. 146.19. Add all those up. $277.76. So these again are the before tax deductions. Okay, before tax deductions. So we just calculated those percents. These are all going to be dollars. Okay. So 3654 is the starting amount, and we need to take off 277.76. Okay, the answer is now 3376.99. Okay, now I can do the deductions for the taxes. Federal tax, provincial tax, CPP, and EI. Alright, federal tax, 18.5%, so 0.185 times 3376.99. Next one is provincial tax, that's 6.2%, so 0.062 times the same number. EI's, or pardon me, CPP, 0.0495 times the same number, and then EI, 0.022 times the same number. Okay? So we're going to get 4 more deductions. $624.74. $209.37. $167.16. And 74.29. Let's add all these up. So $1,000 basically coming off. So this is the deductions. So I need to subtract 1,075 off the paycheck. $2,301.43. So this is your final dollar amount. You started at $3,600 and you get paid in your bank account $2,300. So hopefully this question starts to emphasize the fact that even though you're getting paid a lot of money, you don't get to see it all. Okay? The government's going to take some. Okay. Now, on the final exam in this course, you won't have the before tax deduction. So it'll probably just be this step here at the end. So if you can convert to percents, or pardon me, if you can convert percents to decimals, and then multiply by the dollar amount, get those answers, and then subtract, you're going to be good. Okay, so just reiterate. Okay, change percents to decimals, times by the dollar amount, figure out the dollar and the deductions in dollars, and then subtract from the dollar amount. Okay, one more to go here. We have somebody's paycheck. So let's identify what the gross income is. Okay, right here. So 575 a week. So every week you get 575. What's the net income? So if you see right here, here's all your deductions. And they've totaled it for you, so that's nice. So let's put a highlight on that for you. There's the total of all the deductions. So if you want your net, take your gross, subtract your deductions. So 575, take away 104.73. So 470.27. And what percent of his taxable income did he pay in federal taxes? Okay, so we got to identify how much he paid in federal. Right there. So the federal is $48.01. And if they ever ask you what percent, you need a part divided by a whole. I talked about that earlier. Times by 100, of course, to get the percent. So the part is the federal part, and the whole is the gross. That's the biggest number possible. So I think he got paid $750 for, oh, $575. Once you get that ratio, times 100. So it looks like 8.35% after rounding. Okay, practice your skills. This is the homework.